Hi, everyone. It's Plastic EP here with Cathy Carlson. We got a very special guest on Gemstars. Cathy, do the big introduction for us, will you?
Okay. Well, we have a big introduction for an amazing person. Been in the music industry for 50 years. From Muscle Shoals, Stephen Foster.
How are you, Stephen?
Well, I'm embarrassed after that.
Well, don't be embarrassed, because Muscle Shoals is a famous place, and that's where you are now. And I mean, that's the heart of the music, isn't it? So many great songs that come out of there.
Yep. We in the late 60s going into all the way through the 70s, it was pretty intense. When the gas crunch went on and they suddenly found out that they could cut tracks in Los Angeles and New York just as cheap as they could in Muscle Shoals, that was all over with. But until then, we had on average more hit songs in the top 40 than Nashville and New York combined. Amazing.
Wow.
You had Percy Sledge and Clarence Carter, Wilson Pickett, and Etta James, and Aretha Franklin. And that just was on and on and on and on. Half of Hotel California was cut here. Bob Seger, Old Time Rock and Roll. My old session mate Randy McCormick played the da 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 da. He told me, I didn't know if I was supposed to do that once or twice, and I was concentrating so hard on not flubbing it up that I played it, and everybody sat still. So I played it again. What the heck, And
It worked though, didn't it?
Pardon me?
I said it actually worked. Now, I got to ask you, are you good friends with Steve Cropper?
No, that's Memphis.
Is that Memphis, is it? I thought Steve was down there at Muscle Shoals.
He came down here a couple of times.
That's probably why.
Yeah. He was part of the Memphis mob, the Memphis Guitars, the MGs.
That's wonderful. So, Stephen, not only are you an independent radio station promoter, you also have the independent music show in Muscle Shoals. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's called Direct from Muscle Shoals. And the point of the show is when I was young, 14, I developed epilepsy, and they put me on barbiturates. And I became a barbiturate addict all the way through high school and on into 3 years of college. And I found out what was going on and put myself into a rehab center where they strapped me down with leather straps and cold turkeyed me. And
Wow.
It took me 10 days to walk. It took me 10 days to walk. It took me 3 days before I could blink without passing out. I was in a coma for 3 days. And I just had terrible depression because of the barbiturates. Just awful, sit in the closet at home with a .22 rifle under my chin and berate myself because I didn't have the guts to pull the trigger. And a lot of the music that I write, there's an intensity, there's an internal intensity that goes on. And all apart from that, I hear the radio. I hear the radio in the sky. There's a radio in the sky. It plays all the time, 24 hours a day in my head. It plays all the time, songs I've never heard before. And when I just sit down and pick up a pencil and listen for a little bit and write it down. I wrote some songs. I wrote a series of songs with Spooner Oldham. And Spooner's a great guy and a great writer. And he hears the same radio I do. So when we would start to write a song, it'd be like, husbands and wives, when you're first married and you finish each other's sentences, you're so in tune with each other. And we would write a song in 15 minutes. It'd just all be over and done with. And neither one of us made up any lines. We listened to the radio. If you're really into it, you can get it to play again. That's the tough part. Because sometimes you can't hear. The first time through, I hear all the music. But the first time through, it's hard to hear all the lyrics. And then you're left with what I call writing a song. And I'm not very good at that. I pretty much have to listen and write down what I hear. What can you say?
It's amazing. A lot of artists get it from different ways. Some people get in driving in the car. Willie Nelson used to be inspired for songs when he went out driving. So, it can come from anywhere.
Don't turn on the windshield wipers. You know, they go, ka-chung, ka-chung, ka-chung. You're thinking,
Yeah, but that's the same as the Bee Gees when they drove over that bridge and they
Yeah.
got Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Anything, any kind of beat, any kind of tempo, anything, any kind of beat. And I just did a deal. I've got a 5-album record deal for blues music with a label in a London called Thoroughbred Music UK. And we're doing 5 albums. I've already delivered one, and I'm about mostly through with a second, which is a 6-song EP. But I also put together a distribution deal with a label here in the United States. And the fellow who owns it came out of Sony and Red House, and 2 of the biggest distributors in the world. And now he has his own company, and he's picked me up, and he's going to be pitching my material to the sync houses, if you know what I'm talking about, sync, TV and movies and all that kind of stuff, videos. And he also knows everybody in Nashville and
Yeah,
New York and Los Angeles.
synchronization.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're going to have somebody pitch your music, they got to know people personally. That's the only way to do it. And if they don't know all these people personally, they're just going to try to get in between the money. You know the old rule 2B, whoever gets the money first keeps most of it. Well, you have to fight that all the time in the music industry because there's all sorts of people who would like to be first in line. And they promise to give you stuff and they never do. They never do. 20th Century Fox didn't, and Janis didn't. Even though I just loved Eddie DeJoy to death, they still wouldn't give me my royalties. So,
Stephen, can I ask when you first
79.
actually came up with your first radio show, your own radio show?
That was 2011. I don't know why I did it. I just I would listen to shows and there didn't seem to be any coherency to it, and I wanted a radio show that could talk about depression, but most especially that would play positive songs. And that's difficult to find sometimes, I mean, the blues, what is the blues? Blues about a man and a woman in pain. Okay, Muddy Waters. Well, I was looking for other type of material. And fortunately, a lot of the artists that are clients of mine that I take to international radio, they had that kind of material. So because I had clearance to use it, I started taking those songs and making radio shows out of it. And I approach my hour-long set the same way you do when you're playing a live gig. You don't just go, well, let's do such. You sit down, you kind of look at the crowd and you go, what do they like? What, let's start with this song. And then, after that, let's do such and such. And you start working your way through the song list that you're going to play for that set. Coming from a kind of a existential place, if I, you're seeing what the room's like and you're trying to tailor the set. You got 70, 80 songs to choose from. Which 10 are you going to do? And it's not just, here or there. It's you're picking the songs to lead into the others and make a coherent set. So I try to do that with a radio show and come out of it. And I play the Mighty Field Division Anthem, which is a song I wrote in 2000. And it was about depression. I was in terrible depression. And old friends from Muscle Shoals came to my aid. They found out that I was in Memphis, that I was suicidal. And they called me up. Bonnie Brown would call me up, and Pete Carr. All these people, they called me up and they said, man, it's not that we don't care about you. It's just we didn't know where you were. You just kind of disappeared for a while there, and nobody knew where you were for 20 years. And I was doing other things, running a recording studio and stuff. And then people I didn't even know. And so I wrote the Mighty Field Division Anthem, which is all true. It's all true about the journey from depression and looking at the end of your life to coming to a place where all of a sudden the musicians around you come to you and the people around you come to you, and they take you in their arms and they make you feel like there's a possibility, there is a Mighty Field Division out there, and just keep your eye on it because it's just over the horizon, so to speak.
Cathy.
That is so inspiring. Now you play what you call psychedelic blues, Delta, boogie.
Yes.
Can you explain a bit about what you do?
Well, I go back to the old saying, Muddy Waters, man. The blues is about a man or woman in pain. And within the blues genre, you got Delta blues, which is stomp stuff, and you got and barracks stomps, and you got the ho songs. When I was 19, I just blundered my way into Quinville Recording Studio in Muscle Shoals and asked them if they needed a guitar player. And lo and behold, the guitar player for the session that morning didn't show up. And this was where Percy Sledge recorded. And they just said, well, you know, you want to give it a try. So I went in and sat down, and they sat me down next to this long-haired guy, black long hair. His name was Wayne Perkins, who later became famous. He played with Rolling Stones, Leon Russell, and he was playing bass. And they set me down and gave me a guitar and said, this is Randy McCormick over here, old time rock and roll. And we just started playing music. And when we didn't have sessions, the publisher, Quinn, would put me to work in the publishing company, writing songs with a fellow named Bob Jubilee. His real name was Robert E. Lee, and he was from Virginia. He was a black man. And he was like in his 50s. So we were writing songs. And in the middle of all this, when we were not writing, these guys would come from the fields, and they had grown up with Percy and picked cotton with him. And they sang all these field songs, these work songs. And the work songs that they brought in were, they didn't play piano, they didn't play guitar, they didn't play shoestring, they didn't play cigar box, they didn't play nothing. They would stomp on the floor and go, hey, when you call on your mama, hey, whoa, when you call on your daddy now, oh, okay. And I'd record that and give them a contract, and they put an X on it. Well, those beats, all those African beats that they were using for the work songs, they got in my head. And then I became a Butterfield Blues fan. That's Chicago blues. And then you got New Orleans blues, which got that Zydeco feel to it, that little bit of Live Oaks thing. And then you got Delta blues, which is very, very simple. It's simple in the simplest terms, but it gives a guitar player, if you're decent, a chance to play some guitar. Eric Clapton, that's where he got his chance to play guitar. All those beats, there was nothing going on. What could you do? Put a guitar lead in there, you know. And so the blues has come into all sorts of things. You got Kansas City blues, you got, you know, St. Louis blues, and you go out into California and you got Bakerfield, and the blues is about a man and a woman in pain. And if that's what you're talking about, you're in the blues, because the pain part, the blues, which is why a lot of blues musicians die young. I was amazed that I made it to 40. I was stunned that I actually made it to 40 years old, because I car wrecks and falling off bridges, and, you know, when you jump into a mosh pit, you better make sure they're going to catch you, because the concrete really hurts. And I got 2 busted up knees from that. But, you know, hey, you know, you're trying to sell tickets. You're trying to get people to come in, and you're doing things that are dangerous to your mind and your body. But if they lead to great music, it's worth it. Everything for the music. Percy's guitar player was named Spider. He was 6'4", 6'5" guy, big black guy. And we were sitting in the studio one day, and he looked at me and he said, "You're going to do this, ain't you?" I said, "Well, I'm not going back to the farm. I grew up on a farm. I know what work's about." He said, "Well, here's the way it's going to be. You ain't never going to have a new house. You ain't never going to have a new car. You ain't going to drink scotch and eat steaks. You're going to drink beer and eat hamburgers if you can get them. And you got to watch every penny you spend all your life, and it ain't never going to change." And I thought the equivalent of, you know, and he looked at me with a little twinkle in his eye. He said, "On the other hand, you gets to retire right now." And so I've been retired for 50 years. And the guy that was paying me for all those sessions was a fellow named Jerry Wexler, who was one of the owners of Atlantic Records. And he was paying Quinn to pay me. And paid me $25 a day, 5 days a week. That's a lot of money. $125 a week was a lot of money. Regular labor was $15 a day down here in 1969. You make $75 a week. I was making $125 a week playing music. I was just, lap of luxury. Well, all of that starts making an impression on your heart and soul. And you start understanding really what it's all about, that it's about the music. And if the music is happening, nothing else really matters. I was really lucky that I went through that addiction when I was young, because I've gone through my whole musical life and I never did any of the heavy stuff. There's a story that I can't tell about Sister Rose, Cornelius' brother and Sister Rose, but she's the reason that I never did cocaine. And that, if you can stay away from the heavy stuff, you can get through your life alive. Whiskey is dangerous. Now the whiskey is legal and you can go out and get it anywhere you want to. And you can go drink a whole bottle of it. You can get drunk and fall down and be stupid. And it's legal. So I went through an alcohol phase, but it didn't mean anything to me. There's a thing. When you're playing music, and you're on stage or you're in a studio and you're working with maybe 3 or 4 other musicians, and you start playing music, and it's a kind of a magic thing happens. Because when we were doing sessions, especially, we had to learn a song in 3 takes and get a cut that was good enough for radio. First time through, you learn it. Second time through, you're developing your riffs and playing into the holes between the piano and myself. And not playing all that extra stuff. Staying as simple as you can, and put a foundation for the singer, because the singer's who matters. I didn't matter more than Mavis Staples. I didn't matter more than Cornelius' brother and Sister Rose. They were the singers. Percy mattered. He was the singer. Well, when you're doing that, there's a magic. There's a euphoria that happens between the musicians. And it's like you're being all kind of hooked up together in this mesh. And when I get through playing music like that, I'm always cross-eyed. I have to uncross my eyes when I get through, because I have done what they call, I've gone there. I've gone there. And if you're doing reefer, then you're on a reefer high playing music. If you're doing whiskey, you're on a whiskey buzz playing music. If you're doing coke or heroin or whatever, you're on the buzz of the drug and the music is secondary. But if you're straight and you can get into that place, you're on a music high and there's nothing affecting it all except what you're playing in the other musicians. And you literally get to the point where all of this and all of this is gone. It's just your mind directly hooked up to your fingers, and anything that you think happens. And if you can get to that point and play with musicians who are in the same place, magic things happen. That's how all of the best records are cut, is when a set of musicians, even when there are mess ups, even when there are screws up, even when it doesn't matter. It is the magic, this is part of why we were talking about things, the magic.
That's good. Clear thinking, creativity. Cathy.
Now, how did you get the name Howler? I've been wondering that.
1980 in Memphis, my ex-wife and I started a publishing company, ASCAP, and they asked us to submit at least 100 names because a lot of the names have been used. Well, we submitted 103 names, and the only one that hadn't been used was Howler. So we started Howler Publishing, and I still own that. And of course, I've got another ASCAP Publishing too. But then when I went to when I went up to South Bend in '83 and had the studio up there, taught at Notre Dame, and had the studio, I named the studio Howler. Well, and then I had the studio in Muscle Shoals, and it was Howler again. And when I moved down to Huntsville in 2000, got together with Billy Teichmiller, and he had and Ray Brand, God rest in peace. And they had the studio Mill Kids, and I put my studio together with them, and Mill Kids Howler. And so I just kept it, and we did an album, and we just called it Howler. It was just laying out there for the taking. So we did it, and I've kept it, and I've fought ferociously against other bands that use the name. I'm always sending a cease and desist email. Get your own name. I put a TM on it. Yeah. But in 1980, I put a TM. Every time you see one of my howlers, there's a TM on it.
Wonderful. So anyway, you played with a lot of people, famous people. Well, you've been on stage with, like, besides Percy Sledge, you've been with North. I'm not familiar with North Mississippi All Stars, but Drive By Truckers I am.
Sure,
And
sure.
Ricky Nelson, yeah.
Oh yeah,
and then,
Ricky was great.
Yeah, do you have any stories with Rick about Ricky Nelson?
Ricky Nelson, Memphis, 1978 in the fall, outside concert on flatbed trailers in a parking lot, and there were 10,000 people there, the biggest crowd I'd ever played to. And I was playing front solo, me and 2 acoustic guitars, and 45 minutes of just me. And so I sang the first song, and 10,000 people started chanting, Ricky, Ricky, Ricky. And I thought, oh God. So I played another song, and all of them started chanting louder, Ricky, Ricky. And my heart went down through my shoes and through the stage and down through the concrete and all the way to the center of the earth. I mean, my heart just fell out of my body. And I thought, what am I going to do? So I stopped and I said, look, I'm not Ricky, I'm Stevie. And we're stuck with each other for another 40 minutes. And there were a couple of giggles, you know. I said, so Ricky is in the back getting ready to play. I shouldn't have done that little thing. I shouldn't have done that, I know. But anyway, I said, Ricky's in the back getting ready to play. And so I'm going to play you a song that I bet you know. And I picked up my 12 string and I did a Richie Havens version of Woodstock, pounding on my acoustic guitar. And God help me. The engineer, thank God, he saved me. I heard the reverb come up, and then I heard the PA come up to concert level, because, you know, they give you one third volume to start out. And the concert PA, the level came up, and all of a sudden I was flexing the speakers with my acoustic guitar. And I got through, and some people over here said, Ricky, Ricky. And then some people over here went, Stevie, Stevie. And I said, and they went, Ricky, Ricky. And we went, Stevie, Stevie. So for the whole rest of my set, after every song, 5,000 people would go, Ricky, Ricky, Ricky. And then I'd do like this, and they'd go, Stevie, Stevie, Stevie. And we partied for the next 40 minutes. But I have never been scared of any stage ever since. Nothing scares me. It ain't too big, and it ain't too scary, and it ain't too nasty.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've been through the fire, so and you made it. So that's wonderful. Now, what about the Cars, the Fifth Dimension?
The Cars, they were on their first tour. They only had 8 songs. I played the first 45 minutes acoustic solo again. They came on and played 8 songs, 23 minutes. When they were packing up, the crowd was throwing beer cans at them. It was really weird. They were good. Benjamin Orr was great on bass. I forget the name of the guitar player. The guitar player was great. And, you know, what's his name? The lead singer, he stole a chorus of mine. Anyway, so, you know, they were a really good band, but they were kind of clinical, if you know what I mean. I mean, the songs were really good songs, and they were crafted and well recorded. They played them just exactly like the records. You know, the only other person that I ever saw in concert that played everything just like the records was Elton John. I saw the original 4-piece with Dickie Johnston, I believe his name, and 4-piece, and they sounded just like the record. They just would not do Rocket Man. Anyway, but yeah, that was those are good countries.
Wow. So you've had platinum singles with the Mighty Field of Vision anthem, which you mentioned,
Yep.
top 40 Billboard charted album, Howl at the Blues,
Yep.
10 months charts. Now that's pretty cool.
Well, that's because Mama's Going Dancing kept playing out there on Music Choice. So,
And you've
Hey.
had 12 charted singles too. That's a lot.
Yeah, and these days there's charts and charts and charts and charts, and not sure any of them mean anything.
Hmm.
Even Billboard, I mean, I don't know. It takes $500,000 to get on the top 40 of Billboard. $200,000 will get you in the top 200, and so
Hmm.
that's a money thing. And it's the old question of where is the return for it. If you're not doing concerts, it's useless to get on Billboard because you're not going to make any money because there's no royalties being paid. The only way that radio means anything is to a working band. If you're not a working band, you're just beating on a door that's not going to pay you back. You can open the door and you can get on radio, all over, like your show or whatever, but I'm not going to get any money out of this, and I don't get any. My ASCAP quarterly last quarter was $40.19. I had over 100,000 spins.
Wow.
$40.19. So there's no money there. But now, if you're a band, okay, and that's how I make my living. I have a band. They come to me and I go, look, I can get you airplay all over the world. I get you on 3,000 or 4,000 stations. But what you want is you want to play in towns like 250 miles around. That's what, the Nashville guys always used to say. That's why Nashville was so cool, because it was centrally located. You could play 250 miles around Nashville and get to a lot of towns that had places where you could play gigs. But the problem is trying to get the gigs, okay? And to get the gigs, you need some local FM radio play still to this day. So I tell them, look, call up WLAQ, because that's one of the towns that you want to play gigs in. And you're looking to set up like 20 towns. And you call up the local radio station and go, hey, have you heard the Mighty Field Division anthem? And they go, no. And they go, well, it's playing all over the world. It's not playing in Memphis. Will you give it a listen? And you got an email right there ready, right? With a link in it. And you go, here, let me send you the email. So while you're talking to this DJ, they get this link. And they're listening to it, kind of back there, and they're talking to you at the same time. And they go, I like that. And you go, well, I want to play down at Carly's, or what's a good place to play there? And every radio station has venues that advertise with them. So what you're doing is you're stepping into that money tree. You're getting in between the station and the club. And the club's playing the station money, and the station wants the club to do well, because if the club does well, they'll buy more ads on the station. And they're licking each other's butts, going back and forth. So you go, okay, fine. Who would I talk to? You go talk to Bobby. So you call up Claxton, you go, hey, is Bobby there? And you're talking to the club owner, and you're going, look, we got a song playing all over the world, and we just got it started playing here in Memphis. What do you think about us doing a gig? The radio station's willing to PR, well, okay. So you get a gig at the best price that they'll pay a first-time band. And then if you do well, you'll get a raise. And you're there in Memphis, so you go over and you do a radio interview with a DJ. You go down and visit them, and you do all that, making friends with the DJs. If the DJs could play guitar, they'd be in a band. They all love music as much as you do. So you go down and you meet the DJ and make this guy your friend, and be truly friends with him. Give him a hat or a T-shirt or something like that, and don't be condescending. But go in and meet the guy. He matters to your business. And all of a sudden, you've got Memphis going, and then you got Jackson going, and you got whatever the different towns that you're working in a circle, Knoxville, and if you set up 20 cities and you're playing them twice a year, you got some steady work going. Your band can survive on that kind of money. And it's like the 60s. When I first started playing Percy, I did some of the live gigs with him. The first one I did was down in central Mississippi, a little club, 75 people. They had all the tables out in the parking lot, and there's 300 people of color in there. And I was the only little sunflower in the whole place. And I looked over after the first set, and Percy was over there giving away 45s and signing them. I said, Spider, he's giving those away. He looked at me, he goes, he want to come back here and play for more money. And I thought, Jerry, and Quinn were looking at those as merchandise. And Percy was looking at them as really, really cool business cards. and he was giving them away. And sure enough, we went down there about 3 or 4 months later and played a really high dollar gig down there for the same people and a bunch of their friends, because they had all played When a Man Loves a Woman and Take Time to Know Her. That was what was on the 2 sides of that record. Well, geez, I mean, what kind of introduction you want? And that's how he treated it then. And that's how they're having to, it's guerrilla marketing. And that's a band can make a living doing that. And I'm on the front end of how that happens. It's marketing,
Exactly, Stephen. We got to wind up our interview. It's been fantastic what you've been telling us. And I mean, what an amazing stories you've got to tell us like on this interview. But could you tell everybody now all the links to your radio shows and where they can find you on the net and your music?
Okay. Well, the radio shows, if you come over to my Facebook page and look for Stephen Foster and Howler on that same Facebook page, there's one of the pages there is Direct from Muscle Shoals. And if you look up Direct from Muscle Shoals on Facebook, you'll find me there. And there's links, and it plays on Podmatic. See, I'm not a radio station. I'm not a licensed radio station. I just do a blog, and the radio stations play it. But you can always catch me. My website is howler.biz, HOWLER.biz, howler.biz. And there's all sorts of connections and things there.
Well, I just want to say on behalf of myself, Plesky P, and Cathy, if you take us out, Cathy, it's been a fantastic show.
Wow. I mean, Stephen, this has been like one of the most amazing shows ever. I mean, the way you just described your heartfelt, beginnings and all your advice to musicians and bands and songwriters. I mean, we are truly grateful, all of us, as songwriters.
Don't quit. Don't ever quit. That's
Thank
what Jerry kept telling me all through my life. Don't quit. Don't ever quit. He said, remember, Atlantic was an indie. Keep going. Just don't quit. There's no point in quitting.
Yes, I agree.
Well, we're talking to someone who knows the business, and we just want to thank you again, Stephen, for being on the show. Keep watching Gemstars, and we'll all see you soon. Thanks again, Stephen.
Thanks, EP. Thanks, Cathy.
Pleasure.
Thank you.